Absolutely nothing.
Weather.
Let's bring someone else in before we discuss Brexit with the politicians, because you can never have too many voices when it comes to Brexit. Owen Patterson is in the Central Lobby, former minister, strong Brexiteer. Owen Patterson, let me come to you first. As I understand it, you want still to keep no deal as an option, but I would suggest to you that it's nobody's threatened by no deal, because Brussels knows your government has made no preparations for no deal.
Well, anyone who's bought anything, morning Andrew, anyone who's bought anything, whether you go in a car showroom, you're never going to get a decent deal if they know you're absolutely going to walk out having bought the car. You've always got to reserve the right to walk away. And I think what's happened is the government has been absolutely clear. It's followed the 17.4 million who voted to leave. We got 85% of the votes for Conservative and Labour parties in the general election, endorsing that. And yesterday we had royal assent for the Act which will repeal the 1970 Communities Act. I hope all that together will at last din it into the Commission and the negotiators. And I've been talking to people who've been in meetings with Michel Barnier, who is still absolutely fixated by pursuing the European project at our expense. And I think at this summit, you're absolutely right. I think it's going to be dominated by immigration. There was a chaotic mini-summit last weekend where Angela Merkel was sidelined and the French and the Italians fell out. I had lunch with the Hungarian foreign minister this week, and they have split completely from the main states of the EU. So this is going to dominate the
summit. But,
so
let me interrupt your tour d'horizon of European politics and bring you back to my question. Because it is no threat to walk away if you have no idea where you're walking away to, unless you're in that cartoon character in Looney Tunes who walks over the cliff. And Brussels knows that your government, not you, but your government has made no preparations for Brexit, doesn't it? It knows that.
No, I've been talking to Brexit ministers. They have been preparing for a WTO deal. It's not no deal. There's this nonsense phrase, no deal. We would move to WTO terms, the terms on which we trade with the largest other economies in the world.
And what preparations have you made to do that?
You'd have to ask the ministers themselves.
Well, you just told me. You've told that you know the ministers are doing it. So what have they done?
They say they have been working behind the scenes. But I think what should be very clear at this summit is to make it emphatic that we are leaving. They've got to get that in. And if they do not start talking about a reciprocal free trade deal with zero tariffs, then they should wake up to the fact that we will leave them, we will take back the 39 billion, and we will begin to work hard on the practical arrangements for world trade terms. Someone like John Thompson in the customs, he's said quite clearly, as long as he's got time, he can prepare for world trade terms. There'll be all sorts of other deals, non-tariff barriers, etc., side deals, which need sorting out. So there should be a very clear message at this summit that we will move to WTO terms unless they talk seriously.
Hold on, we've got others here. Let me ask Jesse Norman, Transport Minister. What no-deal preparations have you made?
Well, so the government's put aside £3 billion in order to fund the new deal work that's being done. In my own area, we've literally yesterday, Andrew, passed the haulage permits and trailer registration bill, which, amongst other things, gives us the right to issue permits and have an entirely liberal set of transport arrangements, if we wish, depending on the shape of the deal, including no deal. So
but you would have to do that as a result of leaving the EU anyway.
Have to do what?
Issue these permits.
That's entirely wrong.
You wouldn't?
No, you don't know what you're talking about, if I may say so. What we would have to do is to enter a new arrangement. It could be a liberalised arrangement, or it could be an open permit arrangement, or it could be a restricted permit arrangement, and any of those possibilities exist.
So what other preparations have you made?
Well, in my patch, that is a major piece, because that goes to the straight question of the freight arrangements that we're making.
But your patch is quite at the centre of it.
We've signed the Vienna Convention, which allows us to issue international driving permits. We've got a whole range of different changes. The idea that we aren't preparing for no deal is just plain wrong. And as Owen said, you tried to get Owen to agree with you there, Andrew, but actually he wasn't going to, and he knows perfectly well. The government spent a lot of time and effort thinking about
So how much of the $3 billion has your department had?
I haven't looked at the numbers, so I can't possibly tell you the answer. But I don't need to. Because it's legislation.
Right.
That's really
but there's no building of lorry parks.
What? No, on the contrary, we've just issued a parking review which contemplates specifically the creation of 1,500 more parking places. We've put in place Operation Stack, which allows us to do that, to deal with potential backups. We don't think there will be any. The last time we had backups, there was nothing to do with Brexit.
I understand that. It was a strike. WTO rules, you think, will result in the same seamless trading as we have now?
No, I don't make any judgment about what any future could be. We don't know. What I do know is that whatever the outcome is, we have made preparations through that legislation.
All right. Let me ask, what do you say to Owen Patterson, Justin Meadows, about how we could move to no deal and it wouldn't be that bad? What do you say to him?
Well, I think the underlying story here is of course, that there are a number of Conservatives who want no deal for the sake of it rather than as a negotiating position. And I think they've got to be honest about that. Only this week we've heard about the concerns Airbus have, which employs a number of people in my constituency, about the implications of a no deal. So the government have really got to, of course, prepare for the worst option, but also actually focus in a way that I don't think they've been able to so far on getting a deal that protects our industry.
Let me put the Airbus point to Owen Patterson, because the Airbus memo that was leaked at the end of last week was most worried of all about a no deal. That was where the real fear was. It had worries about a deal, but it was the no deal that it really worried about. What do you say to Airbus on that?
There is no such thing as no deal, the way World Trade Organization terms. Airbus talked about moving production to China, which, as I understand it, is not a member of the European Union. We have incredibly important relations with Airbus, not far away from my patch. Like your other speaker, I've got constituents who work there. My patch, we've just bought £500 million worth of Airbus helicopters to teach all our three forces helicopter training over the next few years at RAF Shawbury. We have extraordinarily close relations with Airbus. They will continue. There's a huge workforce up at Broughton, vast investment in kit. That's not going to go away. They're not going to replace that immediately. And what was interesting, when Jack Lepresti met Airbus, despite having made over £4 billion profits last year, they were touting money, hoping to meet the Prime Minister to get more money for future investment. So I think there are different parts of Airbus talking different languages. We are major customers of Airbus, not just my helicopters in my patch, but the A400M. They are hugely important investors and employers in North Wales, and I think that will continue. Moving to China.
Hold on, Patterson, you've had a good run. I just want to bring Laura in now. This is not a political broadcast for the Patterson party. Laura, this is dividing Tories and even in the cabinet. You know, whether to take industry's criticism seriously.
Yes.
Or to say, no, it's all just project fear. Of course, there may be problems, but nothing we can't overcome.
Yes, that's right. I mean, and that has been part of the cabinet argy-bargy this week. Started with another thing that I couldn't possibly say on a family show that the Foreign Secretary apparently said about business, that was then echoed by Jeremy Hunt, who said it was inappropriate for Airbus to speak out. And then tremendous reverse ferret by the Business Secretary yesterday, and also the Prime Minister, who said, of course we listen to business. And I just wonder if the Minister is comfortable with his colleagues talking about major employers like Airbus in that kind of way.
Well, there's no doubt that business, the government's very pro-business because it's pro-national prosperity, increased economic growth, of course. But well, I'm not sure they are, actually. I think what they're really, I think if there was some pushback, and I don't know anything about the remarks that have been alleged to have been attributed to people, but I think they were pushing back on the question of business lobbying rather than on business. And let's not forget, there's an enormous swathe of business in the country, which is not just big business, which is always trying to lobby government to create its own regulations, but normal men and women going about their jobs. And that's why the economy continues to grow despite all this Brexit fear.
Only just in the first quarter. We await the second quarter. Owen Patterson, thanks for joining us. Come back and see us again. You can make the short journey over to the studio. It's good exercise for you.